Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
I swear, these got to be the what? These people would snitch on First 48 before the crime even occurred.
I want to snitch. I want to tell. Whatever they call telling, snitching, I want to do it. And I want to make it cool to do it.
Hey, shout out to all the subscribers and the members here on the channel. Don't forget to like the video. I am Reese Waters, and I'm troubled.
Donald Trump just fucked up. Like, why would you take away these people benefits? We literally just had to go home because everybody came into my grocery store. I work at Walmart. Everybody came into Walmart bum rushing, stealing, like filling up buggies, running out the store, like just putting all the groceries in their cart because he want to cut off motherfucking food stamps. Y'all, this shit is crazy. Like, I think y'all are getting y'all food stamps in November, or maybe some of y'all is not, but like, they literally just had to like do emergency evacuation at our store because everybody came in going crazy over like food for their kids and shit. And I'm not gonna hold y'all. Isn't this the same orange dude that y'all voted for to be in presidency? Like, isn't this the same dude? The same Lorax man y'all voted for? Like, y'all, this shit is crazy. They literally had to like evacuate all of the employees at my job to the back because everybody came in stealing. Everybody said, fuck Christmas, fuck holidays. Like, we finna just take everything out this bitch. Like, this shit is crazy.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, brother. That sounds like early Black Friday right there for no good reason. Because as you guys know, the White House now claims it's legally barred from using emergency funds to keep SNAP running. But journalists discovered this directly contradicts the USDA's publicly released shutdown plan. The White House clearly wants to end SNAP and is lying to protect themselves. The White House wants to end SNAP and is lying to protect themselves. Now, let's take those one at a time. Is the White House known for lying to protect themselves?
Alternative facts to that.
Okay, let's move on to the next part. They want to end SNAP. I wonder what evidence there might be for them wanting to end SNAP. Because if I know anything about this White House, they left all of the breadcrumbs. Or in Trump's case, I guess it would be McDonald's crumbs.
Well, this is an important cup of tea. A whole lot of y'all have reached out to me today about the news that's spreading that people that receive SNAP benefits will not receive their benefits starting November 1st. SNAP benefits, EBT, that is food stamps. And yes, a letter was sent to states to tell them to withhold releasing funds to recipients, dear. And in that letter, they were talking about the shutdown. But that's not what's going on. No, baby, I've got the entire cup of tea. So what you may not know is that back in May, the current regime sent letters all across the US of A to the SNAP departments, to the EBT departments, requesting data on EBT recipients, those who receive food stamp benefits, going all the way back, this is important, all the way back to 2020. Now, what was going on in the United States in 2020? The flu-pocalypse. And because of the flu-pocalypse, people in the United States were receiving SNAP benefits that had never received SNAP benefits before under emergency SNAP benefits. Millions of Americans who had never received SNAP benefits before were receiving them because we were in a national emergency because of the flu-pocalypse. Just like people who had never before qualified for unemployment because they were 1099 employees were receiving unemployment benefits because we were in a crisis here. Okay. So it's safe to say that a whole lot of the people who started freshly and newly receiving benefits in 2020 are no longer receiving those benefits anymore because that emergency is over. Right? Right. Now, blue states refute 27 states turned over that data. Red states They turned over that data to the federal government about who in their state receives these SNAP benefits. And this isn't regular data. This is all your personal information. You see, we already give data to the federal government about SNAP benefits, not the names of the people who receive it or their home addresses or their social security numbers or all that other stuff that you put on those applications. Just data about how many people are receiving the benefits and what the amounts are. That's normal. But asking for all this personal data is not normal. And blue states came out to say, nope, we're not sending you this data because this is just another play by this regime to collect data on Americans for surveillance for immigration operations. And they refused to send in that private data to the current regime. And it pissed off the current regime, dear. It did. It pissed them off because legally, these states don't have to turn over that data.
Requesting data on SNAP recipients. Well, that's not suspicious now, is it? By the way, is this what you found? The overwhelming majority of SNAP benefits who can work do work. Every dollar in SNAP benefits generates $1.73 in economic activity. SNAP has a fraud rate less than 3%, the lowest of any public benefit program. And undocumented immigrants have never been eligible for SNAP. But, never let facts get in the way of racist propaganda. This from Trump ally Mike Davis. We should only help people who can't help themselves. It's outrageous 40 million people get food stamps. Get off your fat ghetto asses. Get a job. Stop reproducing. Change your messed up culture. Stop giving food stamps to immigrants. Now, it's funny because being that wrong, typically you would characterize somebody as being ignorant, but clearly that is language which is only appropriate for some groups. Now, we've already seen the statistics on all the white recipients of SNAP benefits, a lot of whom are Maga. And I just wonder how they're going to react to get off your fat ghetto asses, and get a job. How are they stop reproducing to the MAGAs? I don't know how that's going to land, Mike Davis. I don't know how that's going to land. Now, I will give you this, Mike Davis. You was cooking with change your culture. You was cooking with that. I absolutely think the MAGAs should change their culture. It's raggedy. It is very, very raggedy. And in fact, I think the administration should probably change their culture, if we're being clear, because everything they do is just so telegraphed. You know what I mean? Like the groundwork for this was laid long ago.
To be crystal clear, what this bill did was create the potential for SNAP programs to no longer exist in any shape, form, or fashion in terms of providing SNAP benefits in states that could not afford to or chose not to, for whatever reason, meet the cost sharing. Is that a fair assessment of that, Ms. Green?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Bivens?
Yes, it is.
Ms. Schmidt?
Yes, sir.
I almost just want to sit in silence to let that sink in. The United States of America just signed into law a bill that will allow states, essentially, to determine whether or not they will provide food assistance to anyone, to federally funded food assistance to anyone.
So the question must be asked, if they clearly have this agenda to end this particular program amongst other social safety nets, what would be the purpose of that?
If there was one thing that I could try to get voters, all voters, to understand about this administration, it would be that the pain that they're experiencing and about to continue experiencing even more is a feature of this administration's program, not a bug. The suffering is not a byproduct. It is the point. So when you see that letters are going out to each state from the U.S. Department of Agriculture saying that SNAP benefits may not be paid, may not be available for the month of November, they're sending out these warning letters that Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits, the benefits that go to 42 million people in this country, majority children in this country, when they're saying that those benefits may not be there in November and they're directing states, warning states to delay sending out the payments because the money's not there, you need to know first, the pain is the point. And you need to know second, they're lying when they say that they don't have the money. They have $4 to $5 billion in reserve, just the U.S. Department of Agriculture, in order to ensure that these benefits get paid even during a shutdown.
And I'm talking about pain like this single dad having to hold back tears because his paycheck can't cover food and rent while Trump's building a $350 million ballroom at the White House.
A stub for an air traffic controller showing Tuesday's check will be for $0. It's why controller Jack Chris spends his days off driving DoorDash.
You're not getting a tip.
The single dad is trying to make some extra money to help cover the cost of his daughter's high school tuition.
How stressful is life right now with this shutdown?
Yeah, man. It's been incredibly difficult. You can feel the tension, and it's heavy, and it hurts.
As the government shutdown rolls into its 25th day, Congress remains unable to make a deal.
She tipped $2 this.
Chris says he's tapped his retirement funds and taken out a high-interest short-term loan to make sure he has the cash to weather a long shutdown.
From the standpoint of a single working dad, how is all of this impacting life at home?
That's a great question. It's hard enough just going to work. Now when you add in not getting paid, that's when you just like multiply the level of pressure. Air traffic is a safety sensitive position. The margin of error is zero. So if you think about it, it's pressure on top of pressure when you don't know exactly when you'll get paid based on politics.
The Department of Transportation says it's continued to see an increased number of sick calls from controllers, leading to spotty staffing shortages.
Well, I don't want my air traffic controllers to take a second job, but they're having to make decisions about how they spend their time to make sure they put food on their table, feed their kids, and support their family members.
One of these days, y'all are going to understand that the cruelty is the point. The cruelty is the point. Because the Trump administration can and should take available steps to ensure SNAP participants get November food benefits. We have reserves for people who are on SNAP and WIC. They have money set aside for that will not be affected during a government shutdown. But because the president appoints the Secretary of Agriculture and all these kinds of things, that secretary can choose not to use that appropriation for SNAP and WIC, okay? See right here, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins has indicated and the media has reported that the U.S. Department of Agriculture will run out of funding for SNAP food assistance for November as a result of a government shutdown because she's not doing her fucking job. Because Republicans are evil and cruel idiots who think that people are in poverty on purpose and you're poor because you're lazy instead of the fact that their fucking legislation is what keeps people oppressed and takes away people's ability to earn a decent living in this country. About 1 in 8 people will not have the food assistance they need, including 16 million children, 8 million older adults, and 4 million people with disabilities. Okay? But nearly 2/3 of the funds needed for the full month of benefits are available in SNAP's contingency fund. And the law says it must be used when regular funding for SNAP runs short. But hold on. Now, despite this being a legal requirement, historically, Congress has provided SNAP funding through the annual appropriations process. This approach treats SNAP as what is known as an appropriated entitlement. And that's what the Republicans are always fighting against. Appropriated entitlements. But it's also a law for them to provide it. Here it is right here. Under some legal interpretation, SNAP may have a permanent appropriation under the Food and Nutrition Act that would fund the program during lapses in appropriations. Like what? A Republican shutdown. Right here, these multi-year contingency funds are $3 billion a year that the 2024 and 2025 appropriation laws each made available for SNAP, and which are still available in fiscal year 2026. The law provides that these amounts shall be placed in reserve for use only in such amounts and at such times that may become necessary to carry out program operations. And don't you think giving people who need they SNAP and WIC is a necessary function? And the federal share is less than $500 million monthly. Right there, it's at the bottom, now it's at the top. It's less than $500 million monthly. So even after those costs are paid for October and November, more than $5 billion remains for SNAP benefits. This is a substantial share of the approximately $8 billion needed for a full month of benefits. Now, the USDA sent a memorandum saying that if the current lapse in appropriations continues, there will be insufficient funds to pay full November SNAP benefits. It does not mean they can't pay any. They can pay part of it. They could give people some money to go get some food, but the cruelty is the point.
Now, people say the pain is the point and the cruelty is the point, and they sound like rhetoric. But remember, this is the same party of we're all going to die.
People are not, well, we all are going to die. So, for heaven's sakes.
This is the same party when asked about school lunches of put the kids to work.
You're telling me that kids who stay at home instead of going to work at Burger King and McDonald's during the summer should stay at home and get their free lunch instead of going to work. I think we need to have a top-down review.
You're painting a
Think
lot
about
of these
where
kids
kids
with
need
a
to
broad
actually
brush.
be.
And if you thought they weren't serious about put the kids to work, they actually did move to amend child labor laws. Ain't that right, Ron DeSantis? What's crazy is him having to compete with kids, for jobs. Because just on site, it would be, what I mean? They might go with the 12-year-old.
You serious?
Now help me here. If the case that's being made is the cruelty is the point and the pain is the point, how do you defend during a shutdown making sure that ICE is being paid? Making sure that the military and the National Guard that's running rampant through American cities are being paid. While Americans can't eat, and we're claiming to go back on promises of back pay to furloughed workers. And what's that? Oh, Law and Order. Is that Law and Order? Okay. How about Timothy Mellon, who donated $130 million to help pay the $9 billion monthly cost to cover military salaries, currently being in litigation over his financial connections to the Epstein ring? What was that? That was Law and Order, you said? Yeah. The TV show would never broadcast something like this. It's far too obvious. Over 850,000 people are going to lose their SNAP benefits in Louisiana because you're protecting a PDF speaker Jesus freak. Why don't you swear in Adelita for AZ and reopen the government? Your constituents can't eat the Epstein files. This would have been one of those cases where Ice Cube is just off by himself. This would have been an Ice Cube solo episode, one of the ones we all kind of agreed to skip, but we know they had to give him for contractual reasons. They just be so telegraphed. Things like building a ballroom in the midst of a shutdown, like dancing in Asia in the midst of a shutdown. Or how about what we have going on in New York City, where the characterization of Zohran Mamdani is if he builds public grocery stores, there'll be bread lines all over the city, while we have bread lines actively in this country due to the shutdown that he was posting memes in the days before instead of negotiating. In fact, The only 2 times we've had actual breadlines in America in recent history was during the presidency of Donald Trump. Now, to be clear, that video was in Hyattsville, Maryland, Prince George's County, where I'm from. I take that very personally, as should you. Because at the same time as those people were lining up for food, Trump gave a $40 billion bailout to Argentina. So if you're a low-income kid in America surviving on $6 a day in SNAP benefits, Trump refuses to use emergency funds to keep you from going hungry. But they'll get some Epstein money to make sure ICE is paid and make sure we take care of Argentina.
To another big issue, the Trump administration recently extended a $20 billion lifeline to Argentina that has gotten some bipartisan criticism, Mr. Secretary, including from Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. I'll read you a little bit of what she wrote. She says, quote, Americans are getting decimated with high cost of living and skyrocketing insurance costs. Many of them have zero savings and some are maxing out credit cards to survive. Tell me how it's America first to bail out a foreign country with 20 or even 40 billion taxpayer dollars. How is this move America first, Mr. Secretary?
Well, Kristen, it is America first because we are supporting a U.S. ally. There will be no taxpayer losses. This is a swap line. This is not a bailout. And it is from the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which Treasury, I control at Treasury. It is never registered a loss. It is not going to register a loss this time. We are supporting a U.S. ally in Latin America, and we want to set the tone in Latin America because look at what's going on in Venezuela. It is a failed narco state, and I'm a big fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she's a fantastic voice in Congress. But please let me finish. So we think it is much better to use American economic power up front to stabilize a friendly government and lead the way, because we've got many other governments. We've got many other governments in Latin America, Bolivia, Ecuador, Paraguay, who all want to follow. So I would rather extend a swap line than be shooting at the boats carrying drugs as we're having to coming out of Venezuela.
So if I got this right, the money's flowing to Argentina because that is an American ally. So my natural conclusion would be that the actual American people don't qualify. And as outrageous as that sounds, it's clearly the way this administration has been moving. Everyone needs to understand what Donald Trump is planning. If he allows SNAP benefits to expire for over 41 million Americans on November 1st during his shutdown, it won't be by accident. It'll be by design. Trump's shutdown isn't about budgets. It's about control. He instructed Speaker Johnson to keep the government closed, and Johnson obeyed his master. Everything that happens next flows from that fact. On November 1st, SNAP benefits, food assistance for 41 million people will stop. That's more than 1 in 10 Americans suddenly unable to feed their families. And Trump is refusing to release $6 billion in reserve funds that could cover it. And what happens when over 41 million people suddenly can't afford food? Desperation, empty shelves, looting born of hunger and necessity, not crime. Parents skipping meals so their kids can eat. It'll create mass chaos, and Trump knows it. Why would he want that? Because decentralized chaos creates the perfect pretext for an authoritarian power grab. He's been itching to invoke the Insurrection Act, which lets him deploy the U.S. military inside the country under the guise of restoring order. Picture the headlines. Riots sweep the nation. Trump deploys troops to restore peace. He'd frame himself as the law and order savior, even though he, of course, engineered the crisis himself. Classic authoritarian playbook, create chaos, declare emergency, seize power. Once the Insurrection Act is triggered, he could send federal troops into cities, crush protests, and even delay elections for safety. That's precisely how democracies die, not with one coup, but with a manufactured emergency that the wannabe despot uses to take total control. Remember January 6th? He already tried to use chaos to hold on to power after losing the 2020 election, and this is what rendered him constitutionally disqualified for holding office under the 14th Amendment. Since everyone ignored that, he now controls the entire government. An authoritarian power grab, engineering chaos so you have reason to send in military and troops, which makes some sense of the soft launches that we've seen up to this point, as well as his previous attempts to try and provoke a response from the left or the center. And just as sure as this administration will telegraph absolutely everything, the same week as all of this is going about, Steve Bannon went on a media tour to tell it all.
And does he need a third term in order to see that job through?
Well, he's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
I swear, these got to be the worst. These people would snitch on First 48 before the crime even occurred. Before the crime even occurred, they would snitch. They acting incredulous. You're like, no, I'm telling you, we're going to break the Constitution. No, we got it. We got it. And just in case you thought they were too savvy to put it down on paper, here is a leaked CPAC press memo showing the third term project hosting a February 20th event titled The Case for Presidential Tenure Reform. They're openly arguing for a constitutional amendment to let Trump serve up to 3 terms, citing unfinished business and continuity. This isn't subtle anymore. It's a blueprint for permanent power. Now, you had me at continuity. They have insulted our intelligence on a lot of occasions, but this man don't have continuity from one sentence to the next. That's why they had to invent the weave, because we couldn't follow him speaking for any longer than 10 seconds at a time. He don't have continuity from one moment to the next, but you want to keep him in office for continuity purposes. So we're clear. What we have is a very intentional yanking of social safety nets. Of course, not for nothing. We make sure ICE gets paid. We make sure the military gets paid. We make sure all the billionaires get their tax breaks. We make sure we bail out Argentina. You know, we take care of our priorities, but we make sure that the Americans are suffering as much as humanly possible while amplifying our ability to crush any resistance or what we would characterize as crime. And something which shouldn't go unnoticed, I find it fascinating that association of poverty and desperation and crime. It's something that I argue about. It's something that I advocate for all of the time when we're getting these crime statistics completely out of context to cast aspersions on Black people, and they want to completely ignore the conditions that exist on the ground. All of a sudden now, you want to utilize that exact same cauldron that we've been living in for decades in order to provoke mass hysteria, chaos, and crime. You know, the kinds of conditions that we've been operating in without that up to this point. Let's make that clear. So what we have is you engineering and provoking the American people so that you can go in and grab power. And your man's up here talking about how he's going to serve a third term at the exact same time. I'll be honest. Magas, y'all really done did it. Y'all really done did it. And honestly, I don't know how y'all call yourselves Christian.
Have you looked into the eyes of a hungry child? Have you heard their tummy grumble because they haven't been fed in a few days? If this is okay with you, do not call yourself a Christian. I don't care who you are. You could be the pastor of the biggest church in America. And if you are okay with this, you are not a Christian. The fact that little kids are going to go on daily without food, go to school on a hungry tummy, come home to no food, and you're sitting here thinking, oh, well, you know, it's the damn Democrats, or, oh, the government. Shut your fucking mouth. None of this should be about politics. It shouldn't be about the right or the left. It's about people that need help. And if you've never known what that's like, because I haven't, okay? I grew up in a very middle-class white family. My parents didn't have a lot of money, but guess what? I didn't go without food. And if you've ever looked into a little kid's eyes who hasn't had a warm meal and it doesn't fucking move you, you are a garbage human. Garbage, okay? So I hope to God that if you call yourself a Christian, you remind yourself what the fuck that actually means.
And notice how quickly we want our nation to uphold Christian values turns into it's not the government's job to feed the hungry or help the poor, which are literal things Christ taught us to value.
If SNAP benefits do not go out in November, and you attend a church that you've been tithing to and been giving money to for years, and they are not out in the community donating to the community and ensuring the families are eating, including the families in their own pews, right? And then the families outside in the community, if you're a part of a church and they don't immediately have a plan for what's in place when November 1st hits and people don't get their food stamps, then you need to leave that church. They're not using their money for what God intended. God intended for the church's money to go to those who don't have enough and to supporting his community and making sure that you can spread the word. And those things cannot happen if you do not donate to your community. So if your pastor or preacher or whoever he is has a Lamborghini and a mansion, and they also cannot afford to feed the hungry in their own congregation, you need to leave your church. Because listen, people might have a lot of feelings about the LDS church and this and that. The LDS church saved me and my kids, okay? And the LDS church gives so much money, and they have a lot saved. I'm not saying that they are perfect. I'm not saying that they're the perfect stewards of money, but I am saying that the LDS church gives so much, and they have their own food banks, and they donate so much food to local food banks. They're always in service, and I take comfort in that. Okay, but if you are attending a church and November 1st, they do not have something planned, they do not immediately make an announcement to help those families who did not get their benefits on November 1st, you're in the wrong place, and Jesus would flip that table.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And one thing I do want to make clear, there are a lot of people that are doing this work already. There are a lot of people trying to fill in the gaps of humanity from the administration. And it's time to connect with those services, amplify their work, and connect to one another.
Do you really want to piss off this administration and the folks that are currently on this app that are rooting for people to starve when they lose their SNAP benefits? Listen up. Here's just a few ideas that I have on ways in which we can make sure that folks in our communities actually eat and survive the government shutdown. Now, I want to preface this. Everybody can't do everything, but everybody can do something. Let's say one or two of these is something that you can't do. That's cool. Focus on the thing that you can do. So the first thing we're going to do is support the organizations that are already doing this work. That could be national organizations such as Feeding America, Sharing Excess, U.S. Hunger, Food Finder, No Kid Hungry. Now, those are national organizations. What's going to be pivotal is to focus on local organizations as well. So depending upon where you live, there are going to be different organizations that do the feeding work. You're going to want to support those as well. Next thing, you're going to want to get your donations ready. Your local food banks and food pantries need donations. And not just the stuff from the bottom shelf, y'all. Buy the stuff that you would buy for your own family. Also, if you live in places like I live where there are community fridges, why not go ahead and put some items in there? Or if you got it like that, completely restock that joint. Some other ideas. Get to know your neighbors. Get to know folks, especially folks who might need help. our disabled neighbors, our elderly neighbors, our neighbors who have kids. Get to know those folks. And again, if you have extra to be able to support them, why not do a grocery store run for them? Support mutual aid funds. So many people who are already on these programs were already working multiple jobs, just trying to feed their families. Mutual aid is a way that we can make sure that those folks continue to eat. Also, don't treat this like no pet project, okay? Treat people with dignity, okay? Just because a person is hungry doesn't mean that they get treated less than a human being. Don't be weird about your giving. Another idea. Why don't you organize a food drive? Yeah, you. Organize it with your family, your friends, your coworkers, your bowling league, your church, whether it's for a local family or in partnership with another organization. It's absolutely worth it. Some ideas if you don't have cash but still want to help. Volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. Places like food banks and food pantries need help. Volunteering is currently reported at all-time lows, and they need the help, and they would welcome the help. So whether you're volunteering at a food bank or food pantry, or you're volunteering with your local worship organization that are going out and deciding to feed people, all of those are also very important ways to give back, especially in this season. Some folks are counting on anarchy. They're counting on people to lose their minds. What they discounted is the fact that a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us have been building and trusting in and believing in community. And if you're one of those, it's time to start acting like community. So let's get to it.
Amen. That is as beautiful way to go out as any. I amplify each and everything that she said. And in this moment, I want you to take care of yourselves and each other. And if we would have done that, we wouldn't be here, but that's why I'm troubled. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. And as you can see, we made it 600,000 subscribers. So you know what that means. We gonna party. So be on the lookout for notifications of a members live.
A house party. House party? The mother of house parties, man. A pajama jammy jam.
And of course, I gotta extend huge gratitude to all the people whose hard work have made 600,000 possible. Like my man David, whose work on the thumbnails is unmatched. Of course, our editors, Denzel and Boz.
The most diabolical haters this side of the Mississippi. Buck Nasser, what can I say about that suit that hasn't already been said about Afghanistan?
And all of the fantastic mods going all the way to the very beginning with Mariana and Dank and Deshauna, Roberta, Larry, Wendell, Chernobyl, Midnight Oracle, Lovely, Nola, and of course, TJ, who just got added, Miss Ray, who runs the whole entire ship.
You smoke crack, don't you? You smoke crack, don't you?
And Regina, whose research has made all of these videos so much better than they ever could have been otherwise. And by the way, I think we have a new newsletter that you should check out as well. And I know she thinks I forgot her, but no, I never could. My girl, Kristen, who sent me this photo with her dope mug, and it looks fantastic. Thank you so much for all your hard work as a mod. Thank you for the pick, and thank you for being 10 toes down with the channel. And while we're on the topic of merch, some of you guys might have heard of a new website. That is the People's Get Up. That is the peoplesgetup.com. That is the site whose content you'll be seeing soon right here on the YouTube channel. You know, things get a little complicated when you try and cross stream. So we couldn't connect it from the reesewaters.com. We had to develop a whole nother website. Don't even get me started. I'll probably have a members video just ranting all about that whole process.
I hate you. I hate you. I don't even know you. And I hate your guts. I hope all the bad things in life happen to you and nobody else but you.
Thanks to my wife for that one. But check out the peoplesgetup.com for all the merch you'll be seeing soon right here on the channel. You can pick it up right there. And by the way, there's lots of new stuff there and more to come for the holidays.
I'm leaving here with something. You know what I mean? I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something.
Is that a Who Raised Y'all shirt? Yes. Yes, it came recommended. What's that? Oh, the sixes? No, because I got 4 6s. I got 4 6s. So if you have 4, it nullifies it. 3 is a problem. If you have 4, then you good. Where I saw that? 2 Corinthians in the Trump Bibles. 2 Corinthians. That's what. So yeah. So I'm good.